Hey. All right. I'm going to do a couple slides. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Introduction to Godot workshop. We're so excited to have you. I'm Ethan. I'm a third-year student doing a Bachelor of Game Development. I assume most of us are doing that as well. Also, as a part of my team, I've got Tom, Xander, and Lauren, who are going to be sort of wandering around and helping me out. We are doing this workshop in collaboration with Playmakers, so I'd like to extend a personal thanks to them for giving us this space to allow us to learn about an up-and-coming open source engine that's very exciting at the moment. Hide the meeting controls. Hey there. All right, let's just jump straight in. Who are we? I'm just going to explain who we are real quick. So as I mentioned, we're Team Stingray. We've done a couple things before. So we've been at South by Southwest for Tom, Xander, and I's game. Lauren also worked on Echo Rush, which is also at South by. But using the Godot engine earlier this year, we were able to make Smoothie Maker Pro, which ranked, what was it, third with the highest user ranking, with the highest user voting score, and Nothing Shady at This Barbecue for the Playmakers Jam, which ranked second. So we love Godot. We really love Godot. And we hope you guys will too. But what is Godot? Does anyone know what Godot is? It's an open question.
It's a game engine.
It's a game engine. That's correct. Someone's been studying. Someone's looked at the pre-lecture material. All right. So Godot is a game engine. The big draw with Godot is that it's fully open source. It is a project that's been going since, I believe...
What does open source mean?
2007. Open source means that it is a piece of software that anyone can contribute to. The entire source code for the engine is freely publicly available, and it also means that anyone can manipulate that code if they wish. It can also work for 2D and 3D, so it is a 2D and 3D engine. Sorry. Oh, no, you're all good. Let's make sure nothing's wrong. Yep, so it can work entirely in 2D and 3D. We use it primarily for 2D because we haven't jumped into full 3D yet, but it is possible. It's a really great tool for making applications as well. Xander has, I'm going to plug it. Sorry, Xander has built a few applications using it. So it's a very versatile engine, not only for games as well. And it uses a very simple yet powerful rendering engine. So we'll have a look at how lightweight the engine is in a second, but we do know that it is very powerful. I have an example of an application that was made in Godot. This is not ours. This is Material Maker. You can make any 3D material in it. It was made entirely in Godot. And then also I've got my shader repository because I had to plug it at some point. So it is quite a lightweight yet very, very powerful rendering engine. Before we jump into the workshop, I just want to explain why Godot is good and why it's, some of the drawbacks of the engine. So as I mentioned before, it is free. Godot is not a big conglomerate company. It is just a group of, public users is the best way to describe it. You don't have to pay royalties on any game that you make. Anything that you make is yours forever. The only money that, all the money that you make is money that users have sent to you directly. It's lightweight yet powerful. I can't stress that enough. It's open source, which we've already mentioned. And because since last year, Godot has had a massive spike in usership. A lot of people have sort of started looking at Godot now that it is a more viable engine to use. So there's a massive amount of community support that has been added across the past year. There are a couple of drawbacks with Godot though. One of them is limited console support. So because the way that console support works in the industry is it's all closed software. Unity has, you can do it in Unity because you eventually have to pay the license fee for it. That's what Unity does. Because Godot doesn't have that, you can only export it at the moment to Windows, web, Mac, and mobile, and Linux as well. The Godot roadmap does have console support down, so it will be coming soon, but just right now, not quite there yet. Speaking of not quite there yet, it's not quite an industry standard yet. It only exploded in popularity over the last year. So companies are still getting used to it. We have had a chat to a couple developers in Sydney or a couple indie developers around the place. They are starting to look at Godot, which is very exciting. Again, it's not as featured as other engines as well, so it doesn't have as much 3D rendering capability. It's a little bit further back than where Unity is now, but it's only growing bigger and bigger with the community support. And because it's open source, if you can't find a plugin in the base engine, there's likely someone has already made it for you. Very simple. Because of the lack of major features like Unity and the lack of community support right now, it's not as beginner friendly. If you go Unity tutorial on YouTube, you'll have millions and millions of tutorials. You won't find quite as many for Godot yet, but that is expanding. So the point I'm trying to make is Godot might not seem like it has as many features as Unity or Unreal just yet, but it is growing day by day. So yeah, but enough waffle. Let's get into what we're doing today. So I've prepared a little video about what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be making a very simple game, like adventure for the Atari, if anyone knows it. Very simple. You're going to be able to move a character around, pick up a key, then go to the exit, which will then show the win screen. Very, very simple. Very simple. In case anyone's wondering, that took me half an hour to make without recording it. So like it's a very quick and easy engine to go. Cool. Let's just jump into it. All right, on your laptops. Or is anyone using a lab computer? Raise hands. Is anyone using a lab computer? Cool. Just because there might be a bit of extra setup to go around the UTS systems, but that's okay. Cool. We're going to head to the Godot engine. Let's get cracking. So if you just look up Godot engine, you'll go straight to this website. This is the main Godot website. Oh, this is a touchscreen. Yeah, so it shows a bunch of major stuff. There's the community, which shows a bunch of like posts that people have made. There's also a couple assets as well. There's also the documentation, if I'm not wrong, which I will show in a little bit. Is that out of the way? Am I too quiet or am I good to go with this microphone? Perfect. Perfect. All right, awesome. So if you haven't already, download the latest one. Godot has a few engine versions. The one that we're going to be using is this first one. I wouldn't recommend this one just yet. And we're just going to click the blue button. All right, everyone all good with that one? Everyone downloaded it? Great. You're going to see this zip file that just goes straight to your downloads folder. And then you're just going to extract it like you would as any zip file. Great. Get rid of that for now. Okay. These are the two programs that are made with Godot or that come with Godot. One of them is the output console. You don't need this, so we're just going to delete it. You can optionally use it, but I've never had to use it before, so we're just going to get rid of it. This is what you're looking at. This is the entire Godot engine. It is 105 megabytes. That is an entire engine in one, includes everything you're ever going to need. So the great thing about this is you can put this anywhere. For example, I can just drag this onto my desktop and use it as normal. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it. When it cooks. If I'm going too fast with any of this, or if you need me to explain something again, just pop a hand up. I'm happy to slow down for a little bit. That's not a problem. Okay. Hang on. I've already put in application. So just for the uni computers, because then we're not installing it. Like it's just a uni computer thing. But that's okay. If you've yeah, go for it. If you are using a laptop, you should just be able to open it straight out of your downloads folder, no worries. But for me, I'm just going to open the engine.
It has to be both the right side. That's lower. It didn't work.
All right. Welcome to Godot, everyone. Can everyone see this screen on their laptops? We all good? Awesome. All right. Welcome to the Godot Project Manager. You'll see this screen once when you create a game and then every time you load the game. Very, very simple stuff. So the only thing we're going to worry about now is the new button. So we're going to click new, and this is how we create a new project in Godot. I'm going to call it, can anyone think of a fun name?
Fun.
Sorry?
Fun.
Fun? Just fun? Okay. Bet. All right, we're just going to call it fun. And then you have to pick an output folder. So this is where your project will be saved. I'm going to make a new folder. I like to store all my projects in one folder. The only thing that Godot requires is that when you create a new folder, when you create a new game, sorry, you need to create a blank folder, right? Godot doesn't like it when you have a built-in folder. So, okay, so this is just a blank folder that the project is going to be saved to. Cool. Cool. Select the current folder.
You've got red text. There should just be a button that says create folder and start it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you see this little green tick, it means that Godot says, yep, awesome. Your folder is empty. We're going to save your project to that folder. Very simple. The next thing down is the renderers. I'm going to be very brief with this one. The forward plus renderer is the most powerful renderer in Godot. It's mostly used for local projects, so stuff like Windows and Mac. So if you're running it off like a local computer, great. Mobile is for mobile, and then compatibility is mostly for web games. For this one, we're going to be using the forward plus renderer, although it doesn't really matter what renderer you use. Also, we can change it at any time later, so we're okay with that one. And we're not going to worry about this just yet. I've actually never had to touch this, so we're okay. Cool. Create and edit. Let's do it. Godot might take a few minutes to cook. Just has to set the project up, set all its default project files. While it's cooking, has anyone used Godot before? Yeah? Awesome. Alex has used it a little bit. Yeah. If you do have a game in Godot, I'd love to see it. I'd love to play it. Everyone here? Everyone see this screen behind me? On their laptops. All right, I'll just wait a second because it can take a bit of time. There we go. All right. Nice. You'll notice that in Godot, it opens up with a 3D scene. Unlike Unity, where you have to pick 2D or 3D to start with, the Godot engine is both 3D and 2D at the same time. So you can swap between them like in the same project whenever you want to.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? Let me get my script up.
It's right at the top. There's a 2D button and there's a 3D button.
Yeah. Let's go through the UI real quick. Let's talk about this part. So if you've used a game engine before, you might know there's a scene hierarchy. Unity has it, Unreal has it, Scratch has it. All of the nodes in your scene are going to be somewhere here. It's very intuitive. It's easy to use. We'll talk about that in a second. The next one is the file system. So these are all the files that are stored onto the project. The only thing that Godot starts you off with is the Godot logo. All right, so that's it. That's all that Godot gives you. It doesn't even give you like a main camera, but that's okay. Next up is the game view. So as Xander was just saying, there's multiple views that this screen can take here. This is the 2D view. If you click 2D at the top, it'll show you a 2D screen. This border right here, the one that goes pink, blue, and green, this is your window that is going to be shown when you play the game. You might have seen the 3D one. that showed up when you first started the game. It's just a 3D viewer. This is the next one is the script editor. So the cool thing about Godot is it has a script editor built into the engine, which has autofill, error detection, and built-in access to the documentation. So it's a very, very powerful code editor. Yeah, go for it.
Does it have good debugging tools?
Sorry,
Does it have good debugging tools?
what's an example of a good debugging tool? Sorry, because there's multiple types. There's multiple
Break
types.
statements, it's breakpoints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Godot also has built-in breakpoints as well. I can show how to add that in. It's a bit outside the scope of this tutorial, but I can show you. It's not a problem. Next up is the asset library. So this includes all of the assets and plugins that you could potentially want to put in. There's a whole bunch. Hey, an outline shader. There's a maid. I haven't looked at this in a while, actually. But this is the power of open source software. Anyone can just jump in, make a plugin, and then make it free for everyone else to use. Where else? Inspector. So on the right side, this one here is the inspector. You're going to be looking at this one a lot, so get used to it. It's where all of the properties of your node will appear. So if I create a 2D scene node, that creates it in the hierarchy, and you can see all the built-in properties that it comes with here. One of them is the transform, so I can remember X and Y, rotation, scale, skew. Also, it's visibility. We might touch on modulate in a second, because that's really cool. Ordering, so where there's a fruit chew in my mouth, I'm so sorry. What order in the scene it's rendered in, whether it appears on top or behind something. Scene's taking a while to get out of my mouth. And a material. We're also going to touch on process. So if you've used Unity before.
But Ethan, what's a node?
We're getting to that in a second.
Okay.
Luke Holland's in, everyone.
Oh.
So I thought it was like an open link. Thank you. We're going to touch on this in a second. I'm just explaining the UI. Right. The next thing is all the play buttons. So this will be used to play all the different scenes. Yeah, worry about that in a second as well. The project settings can be found under project and project settings. We're not going to be touching this too much. I think there's like 2 or 3 settings that we're going to change. And then there's also editor settings as well. So this is all local to your computer and what your preferences are. Very, very simple. Let's talk about nodes. So the main core of Godot is the node system. Now I do have a diagram here. If I go to the next slide. Great. What is the difference between a node and a scene? So a node in Godot is a thing or an object that does one thing, right? It can be used to display a sprite, or it can be used to play a sound. It can be used to detect collisions or running a script. Any other examples?
Playing animations.
Playing an animation. We're not going to be touching on animations. It is quite an extensive system. I'm also happy for you to just DM me and just be like, hey, Ethan, how do I use an animation? No worries. So basically, to put it into more technical terms, if you've ever used Unity, there's components. A node is basically a component that acts independently of the object that it's attached to. I know it's like that's a little bit confusing to wrap your head around. It will make sense in a second. There's also a scene. So if you've used, if you've used Unity, a scene is a level. That's not the case anymore. So a scene is a tree of nodes with one parent right at the top, which is saved onto the files. So think of scenes as like a prefab, right? So you can drag a scene from the files directly onto the level and create it in that level. Again, we're going to touch on that in a second. I know this is a little bit confusing to wrap your head around. It all comes down to visual stuff. We'll worry about it in a second. Okay. One sec. I actually might demonstrate scenes first. So if I save this, Control S, level. This actually might be the level that we use for everything.
Everyone do that, Control S.
Okay, now follow along with me. So it should no longer say unsaved. It should not have an asterisk next to it. And you'll see it in the bottom of the file scene there. Okay. This doesn't have a name. So we can double click this and create a new name for it. We can call this level as well. And then we'll save that too. Right? This virtue was a bad idea. Okay, let's create some nodes. So just as a start, I'm going to right click on level and I'm going to go add child node. So it's right at the top of the list. You can also do Control A, which is my preferred method. And that brings up this screen. So these are all of the nodes in Godot. There's a lot of them. In fact, if I expand this, you can see there's even more nodes down here. It's a massive list, right? And it contains a lot of things that you can do. So one of them is the Sprite 2D. There's also raycasting, polygons, audio stream players. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Let's create a Sprite 2D. Right. And in our scene, you can see Sprite 2D is now a part of that. So I might rename this to, let's rename it to background. All right. This will create a background for us. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to download, did you guys all download the asset pack? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have covered this in the Playmaker's Discord announcements. There is a zip file which contains a bunch of visual and audio assets. I'm sorry, I should have covered that earlier. Let me go find that real quick. I did it. Yeah. Okay, so that's there. Yep, so it's this one just here. So if you just scroll up in the announcements. I'm so sorry, guys. I completely forgot about it. I was going to say, did you want to pull open the Zoom call on your computer and answer any questions on my computer in text?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, how many people are on the Zoom call? No one. I don't think that means why.
Oh, it's true.
Good idea, Matt.
Make sure you extract it and don't do extract from the zip.
Yeah, okay. Extract the zip file the exact same way that you extracted the Godot zip file as well.
What are we aiming to get in a second? Do we just want a background on the scene?
We're just going to have a background.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
I'm having trouble with a lack of a mouse. You got it as well?
Space.
Yeah.
There's the other one where you can slide Tom trackpad movement.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah, the trash bags.
Go into edit a second.
I use a mouse when I use Godot, and it means that I can really easily navigate around the screen. But what I also forgot was the trackpad. So the trackpad might have a bit of awkward movement where it doesn't pan and zoom like you would expect it to. There is a setting for it.
That's this.
Is it an edit setting?
You got it?
Yeah, background to them.
Yeah, we just drag it.
Space.
Now it's gonna be in your file system.
That spot, right?
Drag it right.
If you want those space.
I need like. This is all the.
Like that's right, so, oh, yeah.
So whenever you select a node.
Yeah, where's programs?
Right, the nodes all inherit each other. Set these up.
Wait, are you?
When you open up stuff like this.
It's like on my drawings, and I have the mouse button set space, so I can just.
Like they're currently charged.
Yeah.
So, instead of being that.
Alright, so is anyone having trouble with grabbing that asset pack? Has everyone got it? Everyone got it? Great.
There you go.
Does anyone else need help in this room? Everyone's got a background?
Everyone's got a background.
Alright. We're good here?
Yep, I'm gonna keep moving.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. All right. My lectern mic was muted. Okay. So if you have a background, let's drag this in there.
Everyone here has the background.
Everyone here has the background in. All right, great. So there's two ways you can do it, and I will just explain them real quick. So one way to do it is dragging it directly onto the scene, which automatically creates a sprite 2D. The way that I'm going to do it really quickly is using the node that we already created. So there's that. You'll see textures just there in the top right. I'm going to drag this onto this, and it works just fine. Now we can scale this out using the handles here, or we can go to transform and then change the scale from here as well. So I can make this bigger and smaller. This little chain icon tells the X and the Y to move at the same way. So if I unhook this, then I can change the X independently and the Y independently as well. Cool. So with this, I want you guys to add the sprites. Most of you guys have already done this, and then expand it in any way to make it fit the whole scene. So make it fit the whole rectangle on the camera. I feel like everyone's done that. Yep. One thing that I'm going to explain about 2D, one thing I'm going to explain about 2D Godot before I move on is the X and the Y system. So if you look in the top, you'll see a ruler that goes from 0 up to 1,000. It moves from left to right, right? But if you look at the left side, it goes from 0 at the top down to 500. So it moves it moves from left to right, top to bottom. Okay. So if I move the Y upwards, right? 348, 349. See how I'm moving it upwards? This moves downwards. This is actually how real computer screens work. They start from the top left and then go to the right and then go downwards. So that's something to keep in mind when you're using 2D Godot, is that the Y is in the opposite direction. Cool? I know it's a bit confusing to start, but we now have a level node. So this is a node 2D that will store all of our level information, and then a sprite, which sits in the background. Cool, cool. Okay, let's create our first scene. I think our first scene should be the player, because that is, probably the most important part of the game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the folders. I'm going to right click, create new, and then create a new scene, right? This is the new scene menu. So you need to pick a root node. So see how this root node is a is a 2D scene node, or a node 2D. We need to pick the root that will appear here. Now, if you click this little icon with what looks like the 3 branches, you'll see the same menu we had earlier when it came to creating nodes. Which means that we can set any of these nodes as the top of the scene tree. Cool, cool. There is a specific node that I want for this one. It's a character body 2D. So this is a node that's used. If you hover over it, Godot will tell you what it is. It's a 2D physics body that is purposely built for character movement. You can also search for it. If you look up character, you'll get character body, both 2D and 3D. So we're going to double click this one, right? That selects character body as our root node. And I'm going to call it player. Right? Godot's going to say, hey, the scene name is valid and the root node is valid as well. All good? Yeah, all good? Cool, cool. We're gonna hit OK. A few things. Firstly, we now have a new tab on our screen. This is the new scene that we've made, right? It says player at the top. So we can switch between the level and the player whenever we want. The top node is a character body. You can tell from the little icon. So it's no longer this little blue circle. It's this little guy running around. The other thing is this little yellow exclamation mark. So if we hover over it, or if we click it, it's going to say this node has no shape. Consider adding a shape, collision shape 2D. Okay. So if I add a new child node and look up collision shape 2D, there it is as a node. So it's now a separate node, and we will add that. And now we get a second warning. So if we click on this one, it'll say there is no shape provided, right? What does this mean? If we go to the top right, there is a shape property. We can click on the empty, and this gives us all of the possible collision shapes that we could make. I'm going to pick a capsule shape 2D. All right, so just to recap what we've just done, we've created a new scene. We've shown it in the second menu. We've given it the root type of character body, and then we've set a collision shape. So this means that if this shape bumps into another object, it's not going to go through, right? It's going to bump into it and stop, okay? The next thing to add is a sprite, because we can't see anything yet. It is just this shape. So if I go to the asset pack and I go to characters, we've given you a couple new characters to use. So feel free to use any of these. If you double click it, you can see it. All right. So if you open up the asset pack and then go to characters, you'll see all of the sprites for all the possible characters you could use. So I might pick this little green guy to start with. Now, in the same way that we added the background, I want you to add this sprite as a child of the character body. Okay? Or you can just cheat and look at my screen. All right, how are we going with that? So everyone should have a player character body and then a collision shape, which has a shape in that field there, and then a sprite on that, right?
Why is my character blurry?
Why is the character blurry? I'm about to tackle that in a second. That is a great question. That's just the way that Godot is rendering sprites at the moment. So at the moment, it's purposely blurring it to make it less intensive on the renderer, but we don't have to worry about that, right? We're going to open up the project settings. So we'll go project settings. And then we'll go down to, it's not renderer.
Search
Filter.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So it's under rendering and textures. So you can navigate to it or you can search for it in the search bar. Yep. And then instead of linear, we're going to press nearest. And then we're just going to close it. And then you'll see that our guy looks nice and crisp now. Cool. So we've just changed our first project setting. Okay. I'm also going to flip this guy. Oh, now I'll leave it like that. Oh, now I'm going to flip him around. I flipped my guy around by just changing the X scale to be -1 and just flipping him around. The next thing to look at is this shape. So this shape is a little bit big, right? Like it goes way over the sprite. So how can we change this? If we select the collision shape, we can use these red dots to expand it or just change the shape in however we see fit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, just so it sits a little bit more snugly around the player. Or if you really wanted to, you can change it there as well. That changes it too. Control Z goes back to that. Okay. Let's play the scene. All right. So the cool thing about Godot is that you can play any scene, whether it's in a level or not. Okay. So I'm going to select this little clapboard, which says run current scene. So it's this one here, number like the 5th one along. It's run current scene. It's got the little clapboard on it. If I hit that one, wait for it to load. There we go. There's a little guy in the top left.
It's supposed to do that.
It's supposed to do that because that's if this is our camera, right? This renders exactly as it does on this screen over here. Cool. The next thing we need to do is get our character moving, because what's a character if he doesn't move, right? We're going to do our first scripting. Oh, it's not that scary. Don't worry about it. We're going to select the player and then press this button to add a new script, which brings us to the add script screen. Okay. Godot uses its own language called GD script. It's very similar to Python, and I'll show you that in a second. It inherits character body, so this needs to inherit the same as the root node. You don't need to touch it. Like if you add it, Godot will automatically know it and fill this in for you, so you don't need to worry about it. This is a built-in template that Godot made for platformers. We're not going to use it today. We're going to program our own one. So I'm just going to use node default as our built-in template.
Where you can uncheck it. Stuff.
I want the default template. I can show what the blank one is, but that's fine. And then we're just going to name our script. So Godot has automatically named it for us. We can change this to anything or put it in any folder that we want, but I'm just going to leave it. So just like when we were creating a scene, it gives us green text to say, hey, this is a valid where it's being stored, and it's a valid name. Cool. So we're just going to hit create, which will bring us from the 2D window into the script window. Cool. Welcome to GD script, everyone. So you don't have to worry about this line at all. This just says, hey, what type of node am I attached to? So we know that it's attached to the character body. We don't need to touch this. These are the two methods that are built into Godot. So this is ready, and it's the first, it runs on the first frame. So it's like start in Unity. I was just going to say that. And then we've also got the process function as well. This is like update in Unity, but it gives us delta for free. So we don't have to do time.delta time. It just gives it to us for free now. Yeah. So we don't need to worry about ready anymore. We're not going to be using it for anything. Yep.
So could you look at right on one?
All right. Okay, cool. So if you don't know what delta time is, I'm so sorry. Delta time is the time in between frames.
What's a frame?
What's a frame? It's this kind of stuff that I just like know. Yeah. A frame is a rendered image in a game. So usually you might hear games running at 60 frames per second or 144 frames per second. That's because the computer is rendering 144 frames a second. And then this method will run every single time that frame is rendered. And then we can use delta time to make sure that it is frame dependent or independent. Independent. It's Yeah,
Because if the game lags, there might be more time between frames and that will make it go slower. But if you want something like a character moving across the screen, you want it to be constant and not depend on the frame rate.
yeah.
So multiplying by that number will make it do that. So that's all that. That's all.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So does it mean that GDScript also has a fixed update function?
Yeah, it
Yes,
has
sir.
physics process.
Physics process.
We're not going to worry about it for this one, but yes, it does have a fixed update method as well. Cool. So knowing that this is going to run every frame, what can we do with this? We can get the player's input at every single frame, right? What? So let's talk about what we're going to do in this script only. So one, we're going to
And you
get.
can use a hashtag.
Yep. So that's the same as this line up here. So hashtag gives you a comment. Get player input 2. We're going to apply the velocity. So we're going to set velocity using player input. And then 3, we're going to apply that velocity to the node. Does that make sense? Yep. You might see an error down here at the bottom. Remember how I said Godot is very Python-like? Godot requires indents to work properly. I see a few people with heads in hands. Don't worry about it. It's easy. Okay, it's easy. It's not that bad, right? Godot is expecting something, any line of usable code to appear in like this level of indent, but we haven't given it anything. So when you first open the script, you might remember pass. This just says ignore anything past me, right? Once computer, when you reach pass, just ignore anything after me in the method. Cool? So this is basically a way of just saying, don't worry about the rest of the method. Thumbs up. Awesome. So let's worry about step 1.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Do I need to zoom in a little bit? Yeah, cool. How's that?
Much better.
Much better? I might.
Even more.
Actually, I'll do you one better. This button here will expand it out the whole way. But if you're really crazy, you'll press this one, which pops it out into a whole new screen.
Like you're basically replicating this.
So you can just create a whole editing window. For the rest of this, I'm just gonna put it all into the one screen.
But you could do that.
But you can do that if you want to. It's really great for double monitor setups. You can have code on one side and the editor on the other. Okay, so let's worry about step 1, getting the player input. Okay. What have we not done? We have not.
Do you want to write the line?
Okay, cool. Let's store a variable. So in Godot, sorry, in basically any other language, you might say int and then variable name. Right? Godot doesn't like this. Godot does not like it when you put the type at the start. What we're instead going to do is call var for variable. Okay, so you're going to want to say var and then the variable name, which tells Godot, hey, I want you to store this, whatever I'm about to tell you, as a variable. So we can leave this as blank or we can set it. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do this equals, and then we're going to use the input class.
You change it.
Yeah, we do.
A little bit more. There we go. Godot wants, you don't have to, but the guys who made it like it when you do it with lowercase and underscores, because that's how the whole engine's built.
Yeah.
But you can call it whatever you want. You just might make something blank.
So we can't use Unity naming convention for this.
You
You can use
can.
anything you want, but that's the way, that's like the standard for Godot,
That's
is
the standard.
underscore and snake case.
Yeah,
It's disgusting.
it's fine. All right, so we're going to call the engine's input class. So it's just called input, right? See how it highlights itself in a bright green? This is telling Godot, hey, I want you to use your built-in input manager, okay? So then we're going to use dot because we want to use one of the methods from there. Now we want direction. We want the player input to go up, down, and left and right, okay? So we need to store 2 numbers, up, down, and left, right, okay? So you might know what a vector 2 is. Does anyone not know what a vector 2 is?
Great.
Great, perfect. So we need to get a vector too. So what you can do is you can go get vector, and then you can just hit tab and it automatically auto fills it in for you. But what does this method want from us, right? There's a few parameters that the method wants, but it hasn't told us what we want yet. So what we can do is use the built-in documentation. So if you hold Control and then click, a second window will, or second script will open up, which sends you to the actual documentation page, right? So this tells you everything built into the input class, but more importantly, what get vector wants.
And what it does?
And what it does as well, right? So the first thing that it wants is the negative x, okay? And it wants it as a string. So we can go this one, and when you can use single or double quotes, I prefer double quotes. And our in the negative x is our player moving left. Okay, so we're going to use left. I'm going to
What
set
does that mean, Ethan? Why are we using that string?
that will be the name of the input that I'm
Why
going
don't we
to
set that up right now?
set up right now. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Let's do that. I was going to do the line first and then set up.
No.
All
Set it
right,
up
cool.
now.
Project settings. This is probably the first thing you'll do. My bad. Anyway, you're going to want to go from general to input map. Okay, so this is all of the inputs that are you're going to be able to use. So if you've used Unity before, it might have the default stuff like horizontal, vertical, file 1, I think is one of them, except I don't remember it. Sorry, one sec. So this is where all of your inputs are going to be stored. Okay, Godot does have a bunch of built-in actions, so you can tick this and it shows you a whole bunch of all of the built-in ones. These say UI because that's what it's built for. So I'm not going to use any of
Do
these.
you want to use the UI ones just so we don't have to set it up?
I'm going to teach you guys how to set it up. So the first one we're going to do is add a new action. So what did we call this? We called it left, right? Right. So we're going to add a new action, call it left, and then hit enter. And that creates our input action. But we haven't assigned a button to it yet. We haven't told Godot left is this button, right? So we're going to press the little plus icon next to the garbage can. And it'll bring up all of the buttons we can use. So these are all the keyboard keys, you know, up, right, left, down, print, if you really want to print every time you turn left. I'm going to filter by event. So I'm going to click on this little dialog box and then just hit A, right? This says you've clicked A. Good job. Right? We'll just hit OK, and you'll see it there under the input map. Okay. So what I want you guys to do now is set up right, up, and down to the rest of WASDA. If you really wanted to as well, you can add a second button. If you press plus again, you can also add the arrow keys as well. So you can add multiple buttons to do the same input action. So you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I'm going to do it as well. All right. Okay, we now have our inputs. Does everyone have our inputs? We all good? No hearing a no. Once, twice. So, all good here? Perfect. All right, we're going to go back to input get vector, right? And we're going to feed in exactly what it wants us. So if we open this up, we can see positive X. So this is moving in the right direction, right? So the next parameter we're going to give it is right. And then it wants a negative Y. So which direction is down? Open floor. Which direction is down? Yeah. Okay. So what input did we call it? Oh wait, actually. Yeah. Okay. What should we up? Yeah. You confident? Great. That's the correct answer. All right. So we're going to use up as the negative Y. And I know that's a bit weird, but that's just how it is. So we're gonna use up and then down. And if you've done this correctly, it's not gonna have red highlight, which means you're all good to go. Brilliant. So this is storing the current direction which the player is pressing, right? So we can now know left, right, up, down, and north, east, and so on, right? The next thing we're going to do is apply the velocity to the player. So in the character body, there is velocity, which you can manipulate using code. So I'm going to type the word velocity. And this becomes a nice bright blue. So this becomes a really light sky blue, which is your indicator that this is a built-in variable. Cool? Cool. We're going to set this to something. Now we're going to set it to the direction that the player is moving, which should give us blue, which should give us nothing, no red. And then the next thing we're going to do is actually apply this velocity. So you can look up how to apply the velocity, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's a special method called move and slide. So this is built into the character body and it says, hey, I have a new velocity. I want you to execute it onto the character. Cool. Now that we have code in here, we don't need the pass anymore. So you can just get rid of that and there's going to be no errors. Okay. Cool. If we now hit the play current scene button. Oh, it's going. It's just really, really, really slow, right? Why is it so slow, guys? We haven't added speed to it. We haven't multiplied speed. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by a speed. So I can go here and I can go asterisk for multiply and then by a speed. So let's say we do 100. Okay. So this means that it's going to move 100 times faster than what we had it at beforehand. I'll play the current scene and then I'll move around. Look at that. So can everyone move their character around? Yep. Can anyone not move their character around? All right, moving on. This variable here is hard-coded into the system. In a normal, if you're doing this properly, you might want to pull it out of the code so you don't have to keep changing the code all the time. What would be really cool is if we could put this variable here in the inspector so that we can change it without ever opening the code editor, right? In Unity, you might use public, or if you, obviously the superior version is serialized field, which keeps it private. Don't worry about it. Godot has its own version and it's called export. So I'm going to use the @ symbol, which is a nice bright orange. And this brings up export as an option. So we're going to hit tab, right? Which exports, which says, hey, I want you to take this out of the code editor and into the inspector, right? So just in the same way that we declared this, we're going to go var. What are we going to call this? What should we call this? Speed? Perfect. Right? Now, Godot still has an error. And if you look at the error, it says cannot use export because we haven't told it what type to use, right? We haven't told Godot, I want you to be an integer or I want you to be a string, right? What kind of variable should we make speed? A float? Does anyone not know what a float is? We all know what a float is? Great. So in order to tell Godot it's a float, we're going to use a colon, and then we're going to say what type of variable it is. Do I need to move a bit faster? Is that the plan? Okay, so I am conscious of time.
1 hour.
I might move a little bit faster. Cool. So with export added to the thing, you can now see on the right side of the inspector, we now have a speed thing that we can change to any number we want. We can actually set this to a default value by going equals 100, right? And then if we hit this little backwards arrow symbol, it'll change it back to the default value of 100. Cool. So if I change this And if I press this little icon here, it changes it back to its default value. Cool. So 10. Let's change this to speed. So this means we can now change in the editor. So this is at 100. Yada, 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 yada. And then that works like that. Or we can change this to 500. Why not? And I'll run the current scene and we'll move a lot faster. Okay. I don't think I'm going to worry about Delta just yet. That is our entire player script done. Let's go.
We got a guy.
We made a man. We made a dude. The next thing we're going to do is create some walls, because what is a maze without
Why
walls?
don't you drop our player in there
I'm about to.
right now?
Right. So if I go back to the level and I go to the player scene, I can drag this straight onto the scene and it creates it there.
Is that a scene within a scene?
That's a scene within a scene.
What? So are you telling me that I could put scene in scene within scenes to make my whole game?
Yes. That's how it works.
What?
How cool is that?
I'm so happy about this information.
Cool is that?
Yeah, so there you go. How cool is that?
I don't know if I'm screen sharing.
Let's find out. It wasn't screen sharing.
Guess who hasn't been screen sharing this whole time?
Fix it. Fix it. Fix it.
Gonna say, where'd the green square? Wait, why is that not doing that? Oh, wait, I was.
You are.
I was.
You
Okay,
are.
great. I was. Oh, thank God. Sorry, I
Okay,
was
okay.
looking for the green square. All right, anyway. We have a scene within a scene. Now, you can actually go back to this scene by hitting this little clapboard icon, which brings us back to here. Okay? How do you do that?
Good work, everyone.
So there's this one, and we'll just hit this little clapboard icon, which brings us back to that. So we can now edit this. So let's say, I don't know, let's rotate it. So let's just give it a random rotation. We'll save it, and then we'll go back into the level, and then there we go. So that reflects across to anything that we've made elsewhere. I'm going to press the little arrow to reset that, save it, go back here. Let's make some walls. Let's make some walls. I'm going to right click on the level and I'm going to add a child node again. Now we're going to use a collision object the same way that we use the character body. All right, so I'm going to open this, open this, open this. But we don't want a character body. We don't want this to be affected by movement. So which of these three would allow us for players to bump into the object but not move it?
Static bodies.
Static bodies. That's right. So we're going to double click for static body. Let's rename this to wall. And then remember this little triangle from before. So this is a configuration error. This is the same error from before. We haven't assigned a shape. And then we haven't assigned a shape again, okay? So same way that we did for the player, we're going to create a new collision shape 2D. And then we're going to create a new shape. Let's create a rectangle. We can zoom in there. Right. We're going to assign a sprite to this as well. So I'm going to create a new child node and call it sprite. This is just more of the same stuff that we've already done. And then I'm going to open up the terrain folder in our asset pack. Now there's a whole bunch of tiles and stuff that we can use here. The one that I'm going to use is 122. So we're going to use 122, which is just a basic piece of dirt. And we're just going to drag that onto texture. Now, this doesn't fit the sprite properly, like exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reset scale the... That sucks. That doesn't line up. That annoys me. All right.
Maybe you should open up the shape. Decimal points. It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. That's fine. So now that we have this, we can now move the wall wherever we want to. Oh, I forgot about locking. When you select something in Godot, it picks the first thing it can see. So if I want to drag the wall around, it does the sprite. So how do we lock it so that we say, I don't want you to select this anymore? There's a little lock icon here in the top. We're just going to hit lock for that one, which says, I don't want you to be able to select the sprite. So great, we can select, we can move, and it doesn't affect the sprite. I'm going to do the same for the collision shape as well, which means that if I drag, it's only going to affect the static body that we've just made. Cool? Great. Let's make a little maze. So I'm going to give probably about 5-10 minutes using this wall and then using scale and rotation. I want you to create a little maze. All right.
What's the shortcut to duplicate something?
To duplicate, it's Control D. This will duplicate it at the same spot, but then you can just drag it and it's a whole new thing. Cool?
I could make a whole maze with that.
You can make a whole maze with that, and that's what I want you to do now.
5 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah, 5 minutes. All right. So our quick reminder, the X and the Y scale are linked together. So you just want to break that chain, which lets you move the two axes independently.
It's not a thing that we usually, if we're gonna lock stuff, we'll make sure it's. But in this case, it's like.
I heard word of a tile map. We're not covering it, but it is possible. All right, and just a reminder to rotate, it's in transform, and there's a rotation that allows you to rotate. I'm going to set it to 90 degrees. I already have a maze in mind. I'm just going to use the one that I made for the dummy presentation. If you're made, actually don't worry about it. Doesn't have to be a masterpiece. Just enough that the player can move around without getting trapped outside.
You got yourself going. Nice work.
Eh,
Enough?
Let's have a quick vibe check. How are we all feeling? We all good? Is there anyone confused about anything?
I'm showing some people how to save questions. So if you want to, if you one page, you're not going to be able to put it added. Save branch as scene, you'll take that branch and turn it into a scene.
I'm going to give you guys about until 4:15. That's another 4 minutes to just make up your level.
Yeah, look at this comes out of. We're not taking a little. I will.
While we're waiting for everyone to finish their maze, is there anything anyone wants me to go back over and recover? I'm happy to do that now.
It's basically what you see. Yeah, so now you can look at this. There's no area with the camera is without running up to it. We don't have a camera. Control D.
So it's going to use that rectangle as default until we add a camera in, and then it'll add a second rectangle over this.
So do you know what I just did? Save the branch in the scene. So if you want to add a camera. It'll create a rectangle. Yeah. What's it? We don't have to the driving.
Yeah, that pink one is.
So you need. Oh, okay, so you're on the.
Best to make it forward, just like it makes
the same branch.
you don't have to install it.
Yeah. So there are a few tools at the top. I'm going to do this on the monitor real quick.
Now.
So there are a few tools at the top that people are finding confusing. So there's a movement tool. If I select this, I can move whatever my current node is selected upon any axes. But there's also a select tool, which allows me to click on nodes in the scene. Yeah, cool.
Everything is. Everything's possible. But it's. And.
Look, you decided to make it. Hey, Garrett.
If you do. I'm doing last name, sorry, all the way down to all of the.
Yeah.
It's transfer line on top of it. And it's sideline. Does anybody else need help? Any trouble? Confusion? Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Okay, what was my next point? I am following a structure, so 1 second.
I think so. No, you're making, that's what I'm saying next. I'll say so. Probably not.
Yeah.
I honestly. I'm very sorry to hear that. I actually don't have this stuff.
All right, so that's 4:15. So does everyone have a map that they're happy to use? Great. The next thing we're gonna add is a camera. So if I press, I'm gonna press a different button. So I'm going to press the actual run project button. So that's this first play button just here. And Godot's gonna have an error that throws at me, right? So it's gonna say, hey, you didn't pick a main scene, right?
What's a main scene?
What's a main scene? It is the scene that is going to start when you first run a game, right? And we haven't told Godot what scene we want to open yet. Luckily, the level is the one that we want to open. So we can really easily just go select current, because this is the current level we have open, okay?
I should have the player open or anything.
Yeah, so you want to have the level open when you select current. You can change this in the project settings, but we're not going to worry about it. Okay, so this gives us a full level. So if we walk into our wall, we're going to collide with the wall and we're not going to be able to go through it. So we have a full maze working, right? But it's a very wide camera, right? We're seeing all this space that we don't need to see. So what can we use to zoom in the camera? Anyone? A camera, right?
Whoa.
What? Okay. We are going to add a new child node and look up camera 2D. So camera 2D, we're going to select that, all right? And this gives us a new rectangle. So this is actually the camera that's going to be showed in game. So I can press play again. And it gives us exactly what this pink rectangle is. Cool? Cool, but not really. We want it to move with the player. So a really neat trick is to drag the camera as a child of the player.
Wow, are you saying you can have child nodes of scenes?
You can have child nodes on scenes, and then if you go to the player scene, it's not there.
That's good.
So it's only per scene that it's inherited in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you,
Alright.
you can add stuff to the scenes on the outside instead of on the inside.
Okay. We're going to go into camera. See how this is offset? We're going to go into transform and we're just going to reset the position so it centers around the player. Okay. So now when we hit play. How about that? So now we have a camera that moves with the player. Now this camera is a little bit zoomed out. So I'm going to go into the camera settings. And I'm going to go to the zoom settings. So the zoom settings is there. We can scale this. It's really weird. Larger makes it smaller. And smaller makes it larger. I know that's a little bit weird, but just play around with the values. I'm going to set this to like 3. So now this camera should now appear around the player. All right, so I'm going to hit play. So there we go. So now the camera is zoomed in and it moves. We all good with that? Cool. This is a little weird, right? If we move around, it kind of looks like the world is moving around the player instead of the player moving around the world. A great way to circumvent this, and a great way that other games use this, is with smoothing. All right. So the neat thing about a Godot camera is that it automatically gradually moves to the position it should. Okay. In another engine, you might have to program this yourself, but it's built into a camera 2D. So if I go to position smoothing and I just hit enable, I can set the amount of speed that it moves. And then look at that. Look how cool that is. So
it became so smooth.
it's so smooth. So now the player moves and then the camera chases up to follow it in a second. So have we all got that? Do I need to go back through it again? Is that yes to go back through it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in the camera, which is parented to the player, we'll turn on position smoothing. And then that's it. That's it. So that automatically creates smoothing. This is what Godot is good for and does it all for you.
It's a bunch of stuff that you'd be like, oh, I get this working in Unity. It's so annoying. They just do it for you so you can make your game. It's so
It's so smooth. All right, I'm conscious of time. So we're going to keep going. We're going to speed up. We need to make a key. Or actually, let's make the exit first. Okay. So I'm going to create a fresh scene.
Everyone remember how to make a scene?
Maybe have to make a scene. I'm too fast. All right. Now, I'm just going to move. We're not going to use the character body or static body anymore because we don't want the player to bump into an exit. We want them to be able to move through it so we can activate methods. Does that make sense? Right. So if you've used another engine before, Unity, you will have to create a box and then set it to isTrigger, right? Now it is a separate node. So it's called an area 2D. So it is an area that another physics body can move through, and we can run methods through that. Okay. So we're going to make the root node
It says on the bottom, a region of 2D space that detects other collision objects entering or exit.
Cool. So I'm going to make that the root of the scene. I'm going to call it exit. All right. What is this error? It's the exact same as we've already had before. We're going to add a collision shape. And then we're going to add a shape. I'm going to make it a circle this time. All right. And I'm also going to add a sprite to it as well. So I have a flag sprite somewhere down here. Damn, I should have named these.
And maybe kept only the ones we're going to use.
I left them all in there so anyone can use them. Right.
Yeah.
So I have a flag. It's tile 112.
112.
112. All right. I can drag that straight on. I'm going to reset it so it's in the center. The hitbox is a bit weird. Oh, actually, I might leave it. Now, we want a method to run on the flag when the player touches it. But we don't have a script on the flag yet that says, hey, I want you to run a method. So we're going to create a brand new script. How do we create a new script, guys?
The script button.
The script button. So we select our node, hit script. It automatically knows that it's an area 2D. It's going to use the default template. We're going to call it exit. We're going to hit create. Okay. We don't need the exit to do anything while the game is running. So we're just going to remove those methods entirely. Okay. We don't need those methods. Cool. I'm rapid firing. We're going to use arguably Godot's most powerful feature, and that's called signals. So a signal is basically an event that is spread across the entire project. So once an event has been emitted, is the official word for it, any object in the game that is hooked to look for that signal will run or will pick it up. Okay, this makes a bit more sense in a second. So
this is the observer pattern in programming.
Yes.
So you'll have one guy basically yell out into space, "Oi, this thing just happened." and then everyone's listening will go, that thing just happened, I'm gonna run this function.
Right.
That's what we're setting up.
So
So in this case,
we want to send this or emit a signal whenever the player has entered the area, right? Luckily, Godot has it built in for us. So we're going to use next to inspector, we're going to click the node tab, and we're just going to select this and click node. And this gives us a bunch of default scenes which Godot has given for us.
default signal.
Sorry, signals. Did I say scenes?
Yes.
Signals. Some of you might recognize these before. Body enter is really similar to on collider enter, on trigger enter. You might have seen this before, right? But which signal are we going to use, right? Which one from those first couple do you reckon we should use? Remember, this is the player entering the area. The player doesn't have an area.
The player is a body.
The player is a character body.
Body entering.
Body
entered.
entered. There you go.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click on body entered.
Everyone look, this is what we're doing.
This is the thing. Okay, I want everyone to pay attention. All right. So we're going to double click body entered, and this gives us this screen here, right? And then this way we can connect a method up. So we're going to hit connect, and that gives us a method that will run every single time that this signal is sent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Awesome. Lovely. We are not going to use pass. We're going to write our first print statement, right? So if you've used pretty much anything with programming in it before, you might have an output console where you can print whatever you want. Godot uses the word print, right? And it's a lovely purple. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to print every time something collides with it. So we're going to go player has entered this area. Cool? So let's recap what's going to happen. So in theory, a player, which is a character body, is going to go inside the exits area. The area is going to run that signal, which then connects to that method and does whatever that method does. Cool? Let's test that. Let's save this. We're going to go back into the main level. And we're going to drag the exit scene wherever you want it to be. All right. We will then hit play. And we're going to keep an eye out on this window just here. All right. This is where our output statement is going to be. So let's move. Ready? Fingers crossed. Let's go. All right, cool. So the player has entered the flag. The player has entered the area. Can everyone see that on their screens? Cool. One thing that I should mention that I did forget to earlier, I'm sorry, is the way that Godot renders the scene. This flag is on top of the player. That's a bit weird, right? Shouldn't the player be on top of the flag? Shouldn't the player be on top at all times? And that's pretty simple. So the way that Godot draws the scene is that it draws it from the top down. So anything higher will appear at the back and be drawn first, and anything at the bottom of the scene will be drawn later on the line and be on front. Okay. So what we want to do is we probably want to move this exit above the player. So this way we say, hey, I want you to render this one first. So this way the player appears on top. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is rig up a key. Yeah, the next thing we're going to do is rig up a key, which the player then can collect and then unlock the exit for use. Okay, so we're going to create a key scene. Sorry, we're going to create a scene for the key. This is the exact same as the exit. So I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to make a scene that is an area and has the key sprite. Cool? Go for it. Or you can cheat and follow along with me. So in terrain, it's tile 27 is the key. All right, has everyone made their keys yet? Don't worry about the scripting just yet. You just need to create the scene. I'm sorry, guys. Don't worry about the creating of script just yet.
Just do this. Just do that.
Just do that. Just cheat and use what's on my screen. You're not getting marked for it. Or are you? All right. Because the script is going to be a little bit different, okay? Everyone all good? Yep, yep, no, yep, awesome. All right, cool. So we're going to create a new script. We're going to call it key. Exact same as the exit. We're just going to hit go. We don't need the default methods either. Okay. So let's chat a little bit more about signals. Signals are super powerful, but what would be really cool is if we could create our own custom signals that emit whenever we want to, right? Luckily, Godot does it for us. So what we can do is at the top, we can write the word signal, which tells it I want to make a signal. And let's call, when the player touches the key, what should we say? Player touch key. Player touch key. Perfect. Let's go. Player touched key. All right. You can name it whatever, just as long as you know what it's called. Right. Now, if we go to inspector, we select the key and we go to inspector, you'll see that our custom signal is right there. Right? So all the custom signals that we create are in the inspector for us to use, which is really, really cool. What should we do when the key is touched? I think that the key should emit the signal, firstly, and then probably destroy itself, right? Because we don't need it anymore. Once we've touched the key, we don't need it. So let's destroy it, okay? As you do. Let's nuke it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hook up when the player touches the area, okay? So if you remember, it's body entered, and then we'll go. So what do we want to do? We want to, 1, emit custom signal, and then 2, destroy self. So in order to emit a signal, it's so simple. You just go player touch key dot emit. So this will now send a message out to the whole game being like, hey, this signal has been set off, right? Whoever's listening to this, do whatever you need to do. Cool. The next thing we're going to do is destroy the key, right? In other engines, it might be destroy. It might be something in Unreal that I've just forgotten. In Godot, it's going to be called Q free. So this is for destroying stuff. So it's no longer in the memory. It's no longer a part of the game anymore. It's been destroyed. Cool? I think that should be our key. I think that's our key done. Yeah, awesome. All right, so what we want to do now is by default, we want to turn the exit off so it can't be, so it doesn't set off that signal from earlier. Okay. So let's go over to the exit scene. Let's go to the inspector. And in the area 2D variables, there are two variables that we're going to, well, two variables to have a look at. So one of them is monitoring. So if true, this area detects bodies, right? Before the player has collected the key, this exit should not worry about being detected, right? So we want to turn monitoring off by default. So do that. Turn monitoring off by default. Just click it. Right? So the exit will no longer look for players anymore. It will no longer detect collisions. What can we do with this? What can we do with this? Okay, let's do this. With this in mind, let's go back to the level and let's drag our key on to the level. You can put this anywhere you want. I'm just going to put it, I don't know, here. I'll put the player over here. Oh, that's not it. So we gotta play out. Let's put him over here. Okay, don't worry about him. Cool. What would be really cool is if we could connect the key signal up to the exit. Yes. That's impossible, right? You can't have two objects talking to each other. Wrong, Tom, who's laughing right now. We're going to connect the key signal up to the exit script. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to select. I'm going to put that up there. We're going to select the key, go to node. Go to node. Okay, cool. Sorry, I just didn't select it properly. Right, so we should see this key, player touched key, back here again. This yellow one, you don't have to worry about it. So this yellow one says, I'm a part of the original scene, so I can't be modified. Does that make sense? We don't have to worry about it. What we want to do is rig up this signal to the exit script. So we can double click this, which gives us these, and it gives us all the scripts that we could possibly connect it to. So we're going to connect it up to the exit. So with exit selected, we're just going to hit connect. And in the exit script, it should give us on player touch, on key touch player, whatever. It'll automatically make a method. Okay. So this will run when the player touches. Does this make sense? Yeah. Does it make sense when that method will run? So the player is going to go and the player is going to go and touch the key, and then the key is going to send a signal out, so the exit now looks at them. Yeah. What's up?
We use signals for stuff that is it, and then you go to other objects, and then without so for example, a bit of signal, and then it will be wide. So the player does not need to know that there is a line.
All right, does everyone have what I have at the moment? So if you've rigged up your scene correctly, you should see a little green icon up there that says the signal is up correctly. Does everyone have that? Yep. Cool. Awesome. So what are we going to do? We can print a, well, we already have a statement that says, no, we don't actually, print player touched key, just for debugging purposes. And then does anyone remember what was the variable that we turned on and off earlier? On the exit. Monitorable or monitoring? Monitoring. Right. So we can actually do this in code. So we can say monitoring. Godot has autofill for us. I'm just going to get rid of this. I don't need this. So what have we just done? We've made it so that if the player touches the key will destroy itself. And then it'll send a signal out to the whole project. The exit now knows to look for that signal and then will make itself monitoring. I was about to say monitorable. That's not it. So let's do this. So in order to test this, we're going to hit the play icon and we're going to go straight to the exit, right? Nothing happens. Nothing gets printed. I click the key. It destroys itself. And then we'll go to the exit. And then there you go. Okay. So we've essentially unlocked the exit. Is that all good? Everyone all good? Everyone got that?
How cool is that?
How cool is that?
So Ethan, what are some examples of why I would do signals like this in a bigger scale game?
Signals make it so that you can just do it. Did you want to explain it?
Yeah, I'll explain it. So the reason we
Right.
do stuff like this is so that you can make little objects like your player, your enemies, and the levels that only care about themselves and don't know what's going on with anyone else. Then you hook them up together with signals to make your game interactive. For example, you never want your player to know about the UI, right? You want the UI to be separate from the player. So I would put a signal on my player that tells anyone who's listening, anyone who cares that they've taken damage or their health has changed. And the UI will listen to that and go, they just took damage, I'm going to change. The player doesn't need to know that a UI exists. It just needs to shout into the void that their health has changed. And then you can have anything listen to it. That's why we do stuff like this. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
I'm a bit conscious of time. We do have only 20 minutes left. So the last thing I might do,
Windscreen.
windscreen.
That's the only thing.
Yeah, okay, cool. Let's rapid fire this. We're going to create our first piece of UI. Right click, create new, create a fresh scene.
Okay, hold on. Slow down.
This time, we're going to select user interface. It is a green circle. Green means control, because that way users can control what's on the screen. Or, I don't know why it's called control. UI is basically what it's for. Right, so we're going to call it win. Oh, actually, that's not true. Don't make it this one. I'm going to make it a canvas layer.
What is a canvas layer, Ethan?
If you hover over it, a canvas layer is used independent rendering of objects. Basically, it's a piece of UI that goes over the top of the entire page.
Canvas layer.
Canvas layer. Canvas layer. So this is great for UI, great for like health bars, pause menus. Basically, it's a piece of UI that sits on top of everything else. Cool. So you're gonna want to make it a canvas layer, and then we're gonna call it windscreen. Right? Cool. So this gives us this. We're going to have a whole suite of control nodes. So I'm going to create a child node. I'm going to remove that. We're going to open up the control stuff, and there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do. We're not going to worry about a whole bunch of that. Let's start with a color rectangle. All right. So I'm going to make a color rectangle. It's denoted with a rectangle with colors on it. In a control, it uses anchor points, so it can anchor to a certain part of the screens and scale depending on the size of the window. We're going to select the little, I guess, the smash ball looking icon, and then we're going to select full rect. Okay, so if you hover over it, it says full rect, and then that covers our whole screen. We're going to then select the color and then just make it, I don't know, you can make it whatever color you want, but I'm just going to make it like a nice dark gray. Okay. The next thing we're going to do, it's going to be really tight. The next thing we're going to do, we're probably going to go a little bit over, but that's okay. The next thing we're going to do is create a label. So same way we create a child node, we're going to create a label. Right, this is how we display text. So I'm going to say, you win. Good job. And then let's anchor it to the middle.
Yeah, so same button as before, but instead of the big white, you just put it in the middle.
Yeah. The text is a little bit smaller than what it should be. So I'm going to scroll down to theme overrides, font sizes, and then just drag this up. Okay, make this a bit bigger. So we've added a label. We've set the whatever the text is going to be, and then we've made it a little bit bigger. Is that okay? Okay, all good. Anyone got any questions?
So this is like.
Okay, so we now have a windscreen, which is really cool, but we can't do anything about it yet, right? What we could do, if I go back to my level, is grab my windscreen and then just, I don't know, pop it over there. This automatically covers the entire screen, and then I can hit play. And it covers the entire screen, right? Canvas layout. But obviously we don't want it to say you win as soon as you start the game, right? We want to be able to create it at runtime. Right, so what we want to do is instantiate it. Okay, we're going to instantiate it. This should be our final piece of scripting. Yeah, cool, let's do that. So what are we going to do? We're going to delete the windscreen because we don't need this anymore.
But make sure you save the scene.
Yeah.
We just don't want it in the level right now.
Yeah, so I just put in there for demo purposes, just take it out. That's fine. I'll write the code real quick. Yeah, in the exit, we're going to make the exit spawn the win. Okay, we need to tell this script where the win screen is in the files, right? Because we want to drag it out of the files and into the scene. So what you can do, what I like to do is I like to grab it from the files, drag it, and then holding control, let it go, all right? Godot can create automatic drag and drop lines of code. And this basically says, this is where, this is this. So we're telling Godot, I want you to look for this in the file system. Cool. Yeah.
What else can you drag into the script?
Yeah. Well,
What else can you drag straight into the script?
I was gonna do.
I know, it's fine. Yeah. We don't.
Okay. So what are we going to do? Instead of this print statement, we want to create the windscreen and then add it to the level, which will display over the top. Cool?
Yeah.
So we're going to instantiate it by we're going to define a new variable. I'm going to call it created windscreen. Oh, I'm in all caps. I'm in caps lock. Sorry. All right. And then I'm going to call it equal to. And then we're going to reference that variable that we just made, dot instantiate. So this will basically transform it from a scene in the files to a node. That makes sense? We're going to transform it from a scene to a node.
Taking it from the file system, just this, and putting it there.
I'm just confused why you take a photo. Okay, so this means that whenever the player enters the exit, it's going to create this. All right, let's test that, shall we? Let's hit the play button. All right, let's grab the key. And then we'll go to the exit. And nothing. All right. If you've used Unity, instantiate is a built-in method. You only have to do it in one line. Unfortunately, in Godot, you have to do two things, right? We have to tell created windscreen where in the hierarchy it should go, right? Because otherwise it doesn't know, does it? Where in this hierarchy should the windscreen go, right? We can make it really easy and just drop it at the bottom of this, right? But we need to figure out how to get there. Cool. I made it. Okay,
How are we gonna do that?
we are going to firstly get the entire tree. We can get the tree. Alright, easy. Now, what node do we want to attach this to?
I slightly late, so can I still join?
Onto the workshop? Yeah, go
We
for
have,
it.
yeah, we've got 12 minutes left.
Yeah, I gotta just.
That's okay.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. We're going to get the tree, which gives us the entire list of nodes, and we want the node right at the top. Okay, we want the root node. This is conveniently a variable in the tree, so you can just go dot root.
Dot get root as well.
You can use dot get root. I just prefer root. Doesn't matter. Like it literally does not matter. And then we want to add a child. Right. But what child do we want to add? Now we can add windscreen, right?
But that's not a node.
But that's not a node, right? 'Cause it wants a node. Luckily, we've already created a node for it to use. So I'll just copy that and paste it in there. So let's recap. What have we done with the windscreen? We've taken it from a scene. We've made it a node, and then we've added that node to the tree. Okay, we've taken the scene, we've made it a node, and we've added it to the scene.
Say it with me.
Everybody, okay. All right,
Does that
let's.
make sense. Does anyone question? Okay. Come on.
So it's the same-
Ask me if you have a question.
So if you've used Unity in instantiate, the first parameter is self, because you're adding it as a child of self. Like this is the same thing. All right, cool. Let's test this. So if I walk over and grab the key, right, and then I can walk over to the exit, and it creates our windscreen.
But you, someone's doing this one. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, mine, so mine.
Can everyone see their little windscreen when they play the game?
Yes. You guys just made a game.
Yeah.
All right.
I was.
1 second, I'm so sorry.
No worries. You just made a game. It's good. It's good engine. Can I show you something?
Take a photo of the screen from here as if it's wow.
As if it's like, okay, but
Someone's screen. Okay, hang on, move the mic out of the way. I'll take a photo of your shoulder.
do I have time to add a?
No.
Okay, there's one more thing I want to do before we finish up. I was gonna add a button, I was gonna add audio. We don't have time, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is export the game as an executable. Okay,
So this is.
cool. Let's go export the game. So now that it's all complete, we can go to project and then and then export. And this gives us the export menu. Okay, we want to add a certain template. We want to go and this depends on what you want to do. I'm sorry for my Mac users. I'm going to be doing Windows. We're going to use Windows Desktop. So we're going to select Windows Desktop, right? We do have a few errors. Let's fix those real quick. So the main thing is that Godot doesn't know how to export it to Windows. We haven't told it how to do that yet. If you've used Unity, when you install an engine, you have to install Windows as a module, right? And then that gives it the export template. Godot doesn't have that export template yet. We're going to go to Manage Export Templates, and then just download and install.
Can you go through that one more time? Oh, is our class?
I hope not.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, we're gonna get out.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought we did not have time. Okay.
I'll let them. Let's wrap up.
I'm not going to worry about exporting it. I might
Look it up
record.
on Google, YouTube.
Um,
Go to the function.
slide.
Yeah.
Finish the slides off. Okay, I do have a couple slides just to finish up. So now that we've done this, what can you do next? The next thing I would have done is audio and also a restart button. I might go to the Liberty and record a whole tutorial for you guys, so you guys can watch it later. The next thing I would look up is how to use auto loads, which is a great Godot tool. The next is tile maps. So we've given you a bunch of tiles that you can use to make a tile map and draw it, make it easy and nice. Control nodes, learning how to use the UI, learning how to use the animations. I had to plug shaders. Learning how to build on the web is also really cool. You can build it straight into a build that you can upload to itch and play it in browser. And then also just learning more about how GDScript is used. So I've got a few tutorials there that I'm happy to link in the announcements chat. Yeah, I just have a link tree to Team Stingray. We can go follow us on socials. There's also apps on Discord if you ever want to DM any of us. Yeah, thanks for rocking up, guys.
And
Sorry
to
late
finish
for
off,
time.
I give you a challenge.
Oh,
So you've just made a game that has a zoomed in camera, a maze, an exit, a key. I want you to turn this into your first indie horror game and show it to us, DM it to us.
DM, I'm dead serious. Build it, DM it to us.
Thank you very much.
Megan.
Yeah. Let's get it.